The snow had been falling since noon, but by 4 in the afternoon, it had turned into something else, entirely something with weight and intention, something that pressed down on the world like a hand trying to smother a flame. Michael Carter drove with both hands on the wheel, jaw set, eyes fixed on the narrow ribbon of road that kept disappearing under white. The wipers could barely keep up. Every few seconds they'd drag across the windshield and clear a half-second of visibility before the snow swallowed it again. The truck's heater was running at full blast, but the cold still found ways in through the seals around the doors, through the gap at the base of the windshield, through the thin skin of his work gloves. He'd been on this mountain road before. In summer it was manageable. Even beautiful switchbacks carved into granite. Drop-offs that made your stomach dip. Views of the valley that almost made you believe in something. In February, with a blizzard riding in from the north, it was a different animal. It had claws. He checked the clock on the dash. 4:18. He'd told Mrs. Kowalski he'd be back by 5. Mrs. Kowalski was 73 years old. A retired schoolteacher who lived 2 houses down and who watched Lily on the days when Michael's schedule ran long. She had a bad hip and a cat named Biscuit, and she was the kind of woman who would stay with Lily until midnight without complaint. But she would also worry every single minute past 5 o'clock. She would sit in his living room with her hands folded in her lap and the news on low, and she would worry the way only elderly women can with the full, terrible patience of someone who has seen bad things happen. Lily would be fine. That's what Michael told himself, with the deliberate repetition of a man trying to anchor himself to something solid. Lily would be at the kitchen table drawing horses. She'd been drawing horses for the past 3 months, ever since her class visited a farm outside of Pine Ridge. She'd be okay. She was 7, and she was fierce, and she was okay. He pressed the gas gently, feeling the tires search for traction. He'd been on the mountain because of a job, a referral from a guy he'd met at the hardware store, a man named Gerald Pruitt, who owned a vacation property up near Aspen Ridge, and whose diesel generator had been making a sound he described on the phone as like a washing machine full of gravel. Michael had driven up that morning in clear skies, diagnosed the problem in 40 minutes, and spent the next 3 hours getting the generator back to running smooth. Pruitt had been so pleased he'd handed over cash instead of a check, a little extra thrown in for the winter drive. That money was in Michael's jacket pocket right now. He could feel it against his ribs. The engine coughed. He noticed it first as a hesitation, the way the truck seemed to hold its breath for half a second, then exhale. He straightened in his seat. "Don't," he said, to no one, to the truck, to whatever force had decided today was the day to complicate everything. The engine coughed again. Then it rattled. Then, with a sound like a tired man sitting down on a cold floor, it died. The truck rolled to a stop at the edge of a guardrail, snow piling instantly against the hood, as if it had been waiting for exactly this. Michael turned the key. Nothing. He turned it again. A weak, strangled grind, then silence. He sat very still for a moment. The wind hit the truck hard enough to rock it. He pulled out his phone. 1 bar, dropping to 0, then nothing. He got a single text through to Mrs. Kowalski. Truck died on 14A. Getting help. Don't worry, Lily. And then the signal was gone. He didn't know if it had sent. He tried again. The screen just showed the spinning wheel, going nowhere. Michael took a breath. He was a practical man. He'd been a practical man since he was 19 years old, and practical had never let him down the way other things had. He looked around, trying to reconstruct the last mile in his mind. There had been a sign, he'd half noticed it on the way up that morning. A wooden sign, brown with gold lettering. Silver Pine Lodge. A turnoff just past a stand of spruce. He pulled on his heavy jacket, checked the emergency kit in the back, flashlight, flare, emergency blanket, and got out into the storm. The cold was not a temperature. It was a presence. It moved against him, found the seam at his collar, pressed its flat face against his cheeks. He kept his head down and walked. The spruce trees appeared out of the white like dark pillars, and the turnoff was there, just where he'd remembered it. The sign was half buried. He followed the lane, maybe a quarter mile, maybe more. his boots punching through the surface crust of the snow with each step. His breath came in short, visible bursts. His fingers, even inside the gloves, had gone to wood. The lodge appeared first as light warm, amber light coming through windows, hanging in the storm like something from another world, then the shape of it. A wide, low-slung structure of dark timber and stone. A covered porch running the length of the front. Smoke rising from 2 chimneys. He'd never been more grateful for a building in his life. He climbed the porch steps and pushed through the heavy front door. The warmth hit him like a wall. The smell of pine and wood smoke and something cooking soup, maybe. Something with onions. He stood for a moment in the entryway, snow melting off his jacket onto the stone floor, and just breathed. The lodge was fuller than Michael had expected for a Tuesday in February. Most of the guests had probably made the same calculation: he had better to wait out the storm somewhere warm than to push through it, and so the lobby was occupied. A couple playing cards by the fire, 2 men in ski gear talking with the exasperated energy of people whose plans had gone sideways. A teenager in headphones stretched across a leather couch. Michael went to the front desk. The young man behind the counter, his name tag read Ethan, looked up with the careful expression of someone about to say something a guest wouldn't want to hear. "How bad is it?" Michael asked, before Ethan could speak. "We're essentially at capacity, sir." Ethan glanced at his screen. "I only have 1 room available. The presidential suite, on the 2nd floor. I'll take it. That's the thing." Ethan hesitated. "There's already a guest who's claimed it. She arrived just before you. Her car is stuck on the access road. She's waiting." He nodded toward the far corner of the lobby. Michael turned. The woman was sitting in a wheelchair near the window that faced the storm. A laptop open across her knees, a phone pressed to her ear. She was wearing a charcoal merino sweater, dark trousers, leather boots. Her posture was the kind that doesn't happen by accident. Shoulders back, spine straight, head level. She spoke quietly into the phone, in a tone that made the air around her feel like a closed room. She was perhaps 38, with dark blonde hair pulled back and sharp, exhausted eyes. She ended the call without looking up from the laptop. "There has to be another option," Michael said, turning back to Ethan. "I'm sorry, sir. We're at capacity." But Ethan lowered his voice. "The suite has 2 sleeping areas. We've had guests share before, in situations like this. The storm isn't expected to clear until tomorrow morning. The road is impassable." Michael looked back at the woman. She was watching him now, over the top of the laptop screen. He walked over. "I think we're both in the same situation," he said. "Michael Carter. My truck died on 14A. She looked at him for a moment, not rudely, but with the careful assessment of someone who spends a great deal of time deciding whether people are worth her time. "Victoria Hale," she said. She did not offer her hand. "My car is in a ditch, about 400 meters from the front gate. My driver managed to get me inside, but he had to leave before the road closed completely." She paused. Hale Systems. He recognized the name. Most people in Colorado would recognize it. Hale Systems had built half the data infrastructure in the state. "So, they're telling you there's only 1 room, he said. "They're telling me there's only 1 room, she confirmed, her voice flat as a ledger. "And you're not happy about it?" "I'm not unhappy about anything, Mr. Carter. I'm simply assessing the situation." She closed the laptop. "There are 2 sleeping areas in the suite. We're both adults. The storm will be over by morning." She looked at him evenly. "I've had worse complications." Something in the way she said it, not with self-pity, just with the matter-of-fact weariness of someone who has navigated a great many difficult rooms, made Michael simply nod. "Okay," he said. "Works for me." The presidential suite occupied the far end of the 2nd floor, accessible by a wide elevator that the lodge had clearly installed with accessibility in mind. The suite was large and comfortable in the way that expensive mountain lodges are comfortable rough timber beams, furniture built to last. A fireplace already lit, floor-to-ceiling windows on the north wall showing nothing but white. There were indeed 2 sleeping areas, separated by a half wall and a privacy curtain. But the suite had been designed with one concept of occupancy in mind. One king bed in the main sleeping area. A narrow daybed in the alcove that looked like it had last seen use during the previous decade. Michael tested the daybed. It sagged immediately under his weight. "I'll take that one," he said. Victoria, who had wheeled herself to the window and was reviewing something on her phone, glanced over. "The heating is stronger on the main side. The alcove is next to an exterior wall." She paused. "I've been told the older pipes don't hold heat well on that side. I've slept colder." "I'm sure you have." "A beat. But there's no reason to be unnecessarily uncomfortable." It was not warmth, exactly. It was efficiency, the same logic that made you put the right tool in the right place. Michael looked at her for a moment, then moved his jacket to the chair nearest the main fireplace without further comment. They found their way into a kind of wordless negotiation over the space. Michael carried his bag to the bathroom and gave her the counter without being asked. He lowered the dinner table a heavy oak piece by 2 inches when he noticed her adjusting her approach to it. He didn't say anything about it. He just did it while she was on a call, and she returned to find it already done. She noticed. She didn't say anything either. The lodge kitchen sent up food at 7 beef stew, bread, a pot of coffee. Michael set out the dishes on the low table near the fire, and they ate across from each other with the storm pressing against the glass, and the fire doing the only talking for a while. "You said you're a mechanic," Victoria said, eventually. "Auto shop in Pine Ridge." "Carter's Automotive." He broke off a piece of bread. "Had it for 6 years. You own it?" "Bought it off an older guy who was retiring. Fixed it up piece by piece." He shrugged. "It's not fancy, but it runs." She tilted her head slightly, as if recalibrating. "You also do house calls for generators on mountain properties, when the money's right and the weather's reasonable." He looked up. Today it was one of those things. She almost smiled. It came and went so quickly, he could have imagined it. "And there's a daughter," she said. He was quiet for a second. "How did you know?" She looked at him directly. "You've checked your phone 14 times since we got up here. Each time you look at it, your face does something it doesn't do any other time." He put down the bread. "Lily, 7 years old. She's with a neighbor. Is the neighbor reliable?" "Mrs. Kowalski is the most reliable person I've ever known." He paused. "She's 73 and has a bad hip, and she will sit in my living room and worry every single minute until I'm back." Something passed across Victoria's face, not sympathy exactly, but recognition, as if a word had been used she'd heard before in a different language. "She's lucky," Victoria said, "to have someone worry like that." He looked at her. She'd already turned back to her dinner, closing the thing as efficiently as she'd opened it. The dinner plates were cleared, and the coffee was poured, and the fire had settled into a steady, patient burn when Victoria opened her laptop again, and Michael saw her face change. It was subtle. The line of her jaw, the way she held very still for a moment, reading something, before her expression sealed back up again. "Bad news?" he said. She closed the laptop. "Just business. You said that earlier." "The deal." He leaned back in his chair. "The merger." She looked at him with the expression people use when they're surprised someone was actually paying attention. "Hail Systems is in the middle of a significant acquisition," she said. "Kel-2. 3 other companies. Infrastructure, mostly. The board wants it closed before the end of Q1. She was quiet for a long moment. The fire popped. The snow hissed against the windows. "The board has been positioned in a certain direction," she said. "There are members who believe the company's next phase should be led by someone with a different profile." She paused. "Younger, more aligned with current market optics, whatever that means. They want to push you out." She didn't flinch. "After the deal closes." "Yes. The timing is deliberate. They want the acquisition on the books before removing the architect of it." Michael thought about that. "So you get them everything they want, and they use it as the exit ramp. That's a concise way to put it. What happens if you refuse? The deal or the exit? If I refuse the deal, shareholders suffer." My team suffers. The people I've built this with suffer. She said it evenly. But underneath the evenness was something being held very tightly. If I refuse the exit, I can fight it legally. I have standing. But it becomes a war that consumes everything. And if you do both? Close the deal and walk away? She looked at the fire. Then I have a title in a frame on a wall and 20 years of work that built something I'll never sit at the head of again. She paused. And I don't know who I am without it. She said that last sentence in a different voice. Not the CEO voice, not the boardroom voice. Something quieter. Something she probably hadn't meant to say. Michael didn't respond right away. He'd learned, mostly from being the kind of man people talk to in garages, that silence after something real, has been said, is not emptiness, it's room. He gave her the room. Then he said, "When my wife left, I thought the same thing. I thought, I don't know who I am without this family. Without the shape I had." He turned his coffee cup slowly. Took me almost a year to figure out I'd had it backwards. The family wasn't what made me. I was what made the family. She was watching him. "The company is what you built," he said. "It's not what you are." She looked away, back to the fire. Her hands were folded in her lap, very still. "People say things like that," she said. "And then they go back to their careers, and their identities, and their context, and the thing they said is just a thing they said." "Yeah," he said. "Sometimes." He didn't argue with her. She seemed surprised by that. He woke to a sound, not a loud sound. That was what pulled him out of sleep, not the urgency of it, but the deliberate suppression of it. The sound of something being held back. The clock on the nightstand read 2:47. Michael lay still for a moment, listening. The storm had quieted. Outside, the wind had dropped to a low, persistent murmur. The fire was low, the room dim. From beyond the privacy curtain, he could see light, the blue-white glow of a laptop screen. He heard it again. A breath, caught, controlled. The way you breathe when you're in pain, and you don't want anyone to know. He got up quietly. She was at the window. The wheelchair positioned sideways to it, so she could look out at the dark and the snow and the slope of the mountain below, pale and enormous in the cloud-filtered moonlight. The laptop was open on the small table she'd pulled beside her, but the screen had gone dark from inactivity. The phone was face down. She didn't turn when she heard him. But she didn't startle either. "You should be asleep," she said. Her voice was flat, controlled. But the flatness was working very hard. "So should you." He went to the kitchen area and put the kettle on without asking. He found the coffee she'd brought in her bag, a proper ground coffee, the kind that came in sealed foil, and made 2 cups. He brought one over and set it on the table beside the dark laptop, without comment. She looked at the cup for a moment. "There was a call," she said, "at 1, from Garrett Hale." She paused. "My uncle. He's a board member. He's been a board member since before I became CEO." Another pause. Longer. He was the one who first believed I could run it. Michael waited. He called to tell me. She stopped. Her jaw tightened. He said he tried to hold it. He said he told them. And then he said, "Victoria, I think you should consider the transition, for the company's sake." The room was very quiet. "He's the last one," she said. "Every other person I trusted on that board has already chosen a side. He was the last one." She exhaled slowly. The way you exhale when you're trying to release something that won't release. "And now he's telling me it's time to go." Michael sat down in the chair across from her. He picked up his cup. He didn't say anything yet. "I'm not going to cry," she said. "Okay. I just want to be clear about that." "Okay." She looked at him for the first time since he'd come in. Her eyes were dry. They were also something else raw. The way a wound looks when the surface has been scraped off. Not broken. Just exposed. "I built that company," she said. "Not my father. Not the board. Not the advisors who told me at 32 that I was too young and too aggressive and too particular in my vision. I built it. I restructured it after the 2018 contraction. I took it from 40 employees to 4,000. I made every hard call. She stopped. I gave it everything. I know, Michael said. You don't know. No, he said. I meant I believe you. She looked at him. I believe that's true, he said. All of it. Tell me why you stayed, she said, after a while. He raised an eyebrow. After your wife left. You could have sold the shop. Moved. Started somewhere without the, she gestured vaguely. Without the weight of it. I thought about it, he said. About 6 months in, I had a serious conversation with myself about selling the shop and moving to Portland. My brother's out there. He kept calling, telling me I needed a change. Why didn't you? He thought about it the way you think about something you've settled, but never fully articulated. Because the shop is mine in a way that has nothing to do with the deed, he said. I poured myself into it. The work. The way we do things. The customers who've been coming in since year one. He paused, but I also knew I had to be honest with myself. The shop wasn't the reason I stayed. I stayed because of Lily. She needed roots. She needed her school, her street, her neighbors. Kids need continuity, especially when one of the things that was supposed to be permanent just left. Victoria turned the coffee cup slowly in her hands. So you stayed for someone else, she said. I stayed for the right reasons, he said. Which happened to be someone else. That's different from staying because you don't know how to leave. She was quiet. I think I've been staying because I don't know how to leave, she said. Not loudly. Almost to herself. Maybe, he said. Or maybe you've been staying because it's genuinely yours and that's a real thing worth fighting for. Only you know which one it is. How do you know the difference? He looked at her directly. Ask yourself. If you won the fight, if you stayed, and the board backed down, and everything continued exactly as it was, would you feel relief? He paused. Or would you feel trapped? She opened her mouth, then closed it. The fire gave a small pop. Outside, a wind gust passed, pressing against the glass and then releasing. I don't know, she said. That's an honest answer. I'm not accustomed to not knowing. Nobody is, he said. But being okay with it for a minute is different from being in it forever. She looked at him. He wasn't watching her with pity, or with the careful performance of empathy he'd seen people do. He was just there, present, in the way that people who work with their hands tend to be present, solid and direct, not looking for credit. If I'm not the CEO, she said, what am I? He considered it seriously. The way she'd phrased it. You're someone who built something that 4,000 people depend on, he said. You're someone who took a company apart and put it back together when everyone said it couldn't be done. You're someone who drove through a Colorado blizzard to get to a meeting because that's the kind of person you are. He picked up his cup. None of that lives in your title. She didn't answer. But the way she was sitting changed just slightly. Some calculation in her posture releasing. You said your wife left, she said. Did you see it coming? I saw the pieces, he said. I didn't put them together in time. He paused. She wasn't unhappy with me, exactly. She was unhappy with the life. She wanted something else. More. Different. I don't know how to describe it, except to say that what we had was real to me, in a way that it stopped being real to her. That must have been devastating. Yeah. He said it simply, without drama. It was. For a long time it was the thing I thought about when I woke up and when I went to sleep and every hour in between. He turned the cup, and then one morning I woke up and I thought about whether the coffee filter had enough grounds in it. And I realized I'd made it a whole day without thinking about it once. That was something. Victoria was watching him with the focused attention of someone taking notes on something important. One day, she said. One day, he said. She has a rule, Michael said. He'd gotten up and put another log on the fire. And the room had brightened and warmed. He'd gone back to the chair, and they were both turned slightly toward the fire. Not at each other, just both watching the same thing. which felt easier. Lily does. What kind of rule? She calls it the right now rule. He shook his head a little, remembering. She came up with it herself, I swear. After her mother left, she was 5. I don't know where she got it. What does it mean? We were in the car, he said, about 2 months after Sarah left. Lily asked me if Mommy was ever coming back, and I didn't know what to say, because I didn't want to lie to her, but I also couldn't. I couldn't say what I was afraid was true. So I just said, I don't know, sweetheart. And she got real quiet for a while. And then she said, Daddy, are you scared right now? He paused. I said, Yeah, Lily. Yeah, I am. He looked at the fire. And she said, Are you scared of right now? Or are you scared of what might happen? And I thought about it for a second. And I said, What might happen? I guess. And she nodded like I'd just confirmed something she suspected. And she said, That's dumb, Daddy. You can only be scared of right now. The other stuff isn't here yet. The room was quiet. She was 5, Victoria said. 5.5. She was very specific about the half, a beat. She made me say it with her. Only be scared of right now. We said it 3 times. And then she asked if we could get ice cream. Victoria laughed. It came out quietly, unexpected. A real laugh. Brief and unguarded. And it made her look younger by about a decade. Did you get ice cream? It was February. I found a place. He smiled at the fire. You find a way. She was quiet for a moment. The laugh had softened her, and she didn't close it back up right away. She let it sit. I've been afraid of what might happen for years, she said. Since before the board started shifting. Maybe since I took the CEO position. It's like the higher you climb, the further the fall looks. Yeah. The right now rule is harder to apply when the right now is a blizzard in a lodge with a stranger. It's especially for the blizzard in the lodge with the stranger, he said. That's exactly what it's for. She looked at him. What is the right now for you? Tonight. He thought about it. My truck's dead on a mountain road. My kids with a reliable neighbor. I've got coffee and a fire and someone to talk to. And the storm is already quieting down. He raised the cup. Right now is actually okay. Something in her face shifted. A recognition, or the beginning of one. I've never thought about my situation that way, she said. In 20 years. Not once. It's not a natural instinct, he said. Lily had to teach me. A 5-year-old out-philosophized your entire adult life. Without question, he said. She's still doing it. The fire had gone quiet again, and the sky outside the windows had shifted, not dawn. Not yet. But that particular quality of darkness that comes just before the world begins to reconsidering itself. Victoria had gone still in a way that was different from her other silences. Her earlier silences were controlled, managed. She was always doing something behind them. This one felt like she'd stopped doing anything at all. Can I ask you something? She said. Sure, and you'll tell me the truth. That's usually all I know how to do. She turned the coffee cup. If I walk away if the board wins, and I take the exit, and I step down after the acquisition closes, is it possible that I'm not empty on the other side of it? She paused. Be honest. Not hopeful. Honest. He looked at her. What would make it feel empty? He said. If there's nothing, she said. If the company was the she, searched for it. The container. And without the container, there's nothing inside. Is that what you think? I think it's what I'm afraid of. He leaned forward, elbows on knees. You've been awake at 3 in the morning. Not because your deal is in trouble, but because your uncle told you he can't fight for you anymore. That's grief. That's real grief. He looked at her directly. Empty people don't grieve. They don't feel the particular kind of grief you're feeling right now, which is about losing someone you trusted. That's got nothing to do with the company. She was very still. The company is what you poured yourself into, he said. Not what you're made of. There's a difference between the vessel and what's in it. Her jaw moved. Just slightly. I don't know what's in it, she said. If I took it out of the context I've been in for 20 years, you'd find out, he said. That's not a threat. That's just what happens, and if I don't like what I find, then you deal with that, he said, one day at a time, not the whole life. She looked at him for a long moment. Her eyes were dry still, but there was something in them that was moving, not grief. Not yet. Something more like the feeling you get when a door opens that you'd stopped believing was there. You know, she said, I've spoken to 3 therapists, 2 executive coaches, and a life strategist. She paused. None of them said anything as straightforward as what you just said. They were probably being careful, he said. I don't have anything to lose by telling you the truth. No, she agreed. You don't. She looked at her cup. That's rare, actually. In my world, in most worlds, a silence, but a different kind of silence settled, not strained. I think I need to sleep, she said. Yeah, he said. The storm's letting up. It'll probably be clear by morning. Michael. She said his name with a deliberateness that meant she'd chosen to use it. He looked at her. Thank you, she said. For the coffee, for waking up. She paused. For not treating me like I need to be handled. You don't need to be handled, he said. You need to sleep. For the second time that night, she laughed. He woke at 7:15 to silence. The absence of wind was almost disorienting after the hours of it. The lodge felt wrapped in something soft and still. And the light coming through the windows had that particular white quality of a world fresh under snow before any tracks have been made in it. Michael lay still for a minute, orienting himself. Then he got up. The Sweets kitchen had the basics. He made coffee his this time, the regular kind, not the sealed foil variety, and stood at the window drinking it, looking out at the mountain. The storm had deposited perhaps 2 feet of new snow across everything. The trees were burdened and beautiful. The sky above them was the pale, flat blue of a very cold, clear day. He heard movement behind the curtain. Victoria emerged, looking the same as the night before, in terms of posture and presentation, composed. Put together, but with something different in her eyes. Rested, maybe? Decided. Clear roads by noon, they're saying, Michael said, nodding toward his phone. Plow came through at 6. She wheeled to the window and looked out. She stayed there for a moment without speaking. I made a decision last night, she said. Or this morning. Somewhere in between. She paused. I'm going to close the deal. Every piece of it. Exactly as it was designed. He waited. And then I'm going to negotiate my exit on my own terms, she said. Not their timeline, not their framing. I'll choose the successor. I'll structure the transition. I'll leave the thing I built in a state I'm proud of. She turned to look at him. And then I'm going to figure out who Victoria Hale is when she's not running a company. That sounds like a plan, he said. It sounds terrifying, she said. Yeah, he agreed. But you're not scared of it yet. It's not here yet. She looked at him. And then she nodded. A single, small, real nod. They had breakfast with what the lodge could provide on short notice: toast, eggs, more coffee, and for the first time since he'd walked into Silver Pine Lodge the night before, the meal had the quality of something unhurried. They talked about Lily. Victoria asked questions about her real questions, the kind you ask when you're genuinely curious rather than being polite. What grade was she in? Was she good at math or at reading? Did she actually like horses, or was it just the phase of the moment? Michael found himself talking about his daughter the way he rarely got to with other adults, not as a logistical fact of his life, but as a person. What Lily was like, the way she narrated her own thoughts out loud when she was working something out, how she'd insisted, at age 6, on learning to tie her shoes in the more complicated method she'd seen a YouTube tutorial demonstrate and had practiced for 3 weeks until she'd mastered it. How she cried at movies about dogs, but had watched a documentary about volcanoes approximately 47 times without losing interest. Victoria listened to all of it. She sounds like someone who decides what matters to her, and then fully commits, she said. Yeah, Michael said. She does. I respect that quality. She gets it from somewhere, he said, and immediately felt slightly awkward about it. But Victoria just raised an eyebrow and said, from her father, presumably, in a tone that was not quite a compliment, and not quite not one. The roads were clear enough by 11 that Michael called for a tow from Pine Ridge, a local outfit whose dispatcher he knew by name. A woman called Teresa, who told him it'd be a couple hours and to stay warm. Victoria's driver arrived before that the roads had cleared enough for the Range Rover to make the lodge, and the driver came up to the suite to inform her. She gathered her things with the efficiency of long practice. Each item in its specific place, her laptop and the foil coffee bag and the spare charger. She moved through the suite without ceremony. At the door, she stopped. I don't usually, she started. It's fine, Michael said. I was going to say she tried again. You don't owe me anything, he said. It was a storm. We were both stuck. We had coffee. She looked at him. I was going to say I don't usually tell people things I haven't told anyone. A pause. Last night was an exception, she said. I wanted to acknowledge it. Acknowledged, he said. She nodded. She moved toward the door. At the threshold she paused one more time, not looking back. Say hello to Lily for me, she said. Sure. And she was gone. The garage smelled like oil and cold metal, and the particular mix of rubber and salt that accumulated on every car that drove through a Colorado winter. Michael was under the hood of a 09 Silverado when he heard the bell above the garage door ring. He assumed it was the afternoon appointment, a brake job on a minivan belonging to a family named Fletcher who lived on the east side of Pine Ridge. He called out without looking up. Give me 2 minutes. I'll be right with you. He finished what he was doing, wiped his hands, and straightened. It was not the Fletchers. Victoria Hale was at the entrance to the garage. She was wearing a dark parka that was noticeably less formal than the merino sweater of a week ago, dark jeans, winter boots that looked new. The wheelchair was the same model, same posture behind it, but the overall impression was different, quieter. She was looking around the garage with the focused attention she brought to everything, taking it in without comment. I was in the area, she said. He looked at her. You were in Pine Ridge. I have a property in Aspen Ridge, she said. I'm going to spend some time there. A pause. The transition timeline has been established. I have approximately 5 months before my formal exit. How do you feel about that? She considered the question. I feel like it's the right now, she said. Not the future yet. So I'm not scared. He recognized his own logic coming back to him, and something in his chest did something slightly unexpected. Come inside, he said. It's warm. She followed him through the side door into the shop's small front office, a room with a cluttered desk and a coffee machine, and a waiting area of 3 chairs upholstered in a plaid that had been cheerful in approximately 1,987. He poured 2 coffees and handed one over. I called the board yesterday, she said. Laid out my terms. Successor vetting. Transition structure. Naming rights on the infrastructure division I built from zero. She sipped the coffee. They accepted, all of it, because they need you to close the deal. Because they need me to close the deal, she agreed. And because I made it clear, I would burn the acquisition down, rather than exit on their timeline, without conditions. She said it without heat, just factually. The way you state a constraint. They believed me. Should they have? Absolutely. He sat on the edge of the desk. So what's the plan, after? She turned the coffee cup. I don't know yet. That's the honest answer. She paused. I think I might sit still for a while. See what surfaces. She glanced around the office, the framed photo of Lily on the desk, the hand-drawn picture tacked to the wall that could have been either a horse or a large dog. How's she doing? Better than me as usual. He turned and looked at the drawing. She asked about the storm this morning. Whether I got scared. What did you tell her? Told her I did the right now rule and it helped. He paused. She was very pleased with herself, as she should be. Victoria was quiet for a moment. I'd like to meet her sometime. If that's appropriate, the word appropriate came out carefully, like she was carrying something fragile. He looked at her for a moment. She was watching him with that same careful attention she'd brought to everything, not performing anything, not managing the situation, just there. I think that'd be fine, he said. She nodded, and then, before the moment could become something it wasn't ready to be yet, the bell above the garage door rang, and the Fletcher minivan pulled in, and Michael Carter stood up and went back to work. Victoria sat in the plaid chair with her coffee and watched him go. And the garage